Hare Krishna, we're studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 5, entitled Vidura's Talks with Maitreya, Text 42. It's August 27th, 2023. Text 42. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayamudiraya. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of God, to Narayan, to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, to Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayesh vabhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavat utama shloke bhakti bhavati naishtiki. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 5, Text 42. Yat Shradhaya Shrutavatya Cha Bhaktya Samvrijamane Ridaye Avadaya Gyanena Vairagya Balena Dhira Vrajema Tat Te Angri Saroja Pitam. I think I did not do Om Namo Bhagavate.
Yes, you didn't do Om Namo Bhagavate.
I'll do it now. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Text 42, Chapter 5, Canto 3, Srimad Bhagavatam. Yat Shraddhaya Shrutavatya Cha Bhaktya.
Yat Shraddhaya Shrutavatya Cha Bhaktya.
Samvijamane Ridaye Vataya.
Samvijamane Ridaye Vataya.
Gyanena Vairagya Balena Dhira.
Gyanena Vairagya Balena Dhira.
Vrajema Tate Saroja Pitam.
Vrajema Tate Saroja Pitam. Yat
Shraddhaya Shrutavatya Cha Bhaktya.
Shraddhaya Shrutavatya Cha Bhaktya.
Samvijamane Ridaye Vadaya.
Samvijamane Ridaye Vadaya.
Gyanena Vairagya Balena Dhira.
Gyanena Vairagya Balena Dhira.
Vrajema Tate Ngri Saroja Pitam.
Gyanena Vairagya Balena Tate Saroja Pitam.
Yat Shraddhaya Shrutavatya Cha Bhaktya.
Shraddhaya Shrutavatya Cha Bhaktya.
Samvijamane Ridaye Vadaya.
Samvijamane Ridaye Vadaya.
Gyanena Vairagya Balena Dhira.
Gyanena Vairagya Balena Dhira.
Vrajema Tate Ngri Saroja Pitam.
Vrajema Tate Ngri Saroja Pitam. Yat Shraddhaya Shrutavatya Cha Bhaktya.
Yat Shraddhaya Shrutavatya Cha Bhaktya.
Samvijamane Ridaye Vadaya.
Samvijamane Ridaye Vadaya.
Gyanena Vairagya Balena Dhira.
Gyanena Vairagya Balena Dhira.
Vrajema Tate Ngri Saroja Pitam.
Vrajema Tate Ngri Saroja Pitam. Would someone online like to lead the chanting of the verse?
Yat Shraddhaya Shrutavatya Cha Bhaktya.
Yat Shraddhaya Shrutavatya Cha Bhaktya.
Samvijamane Ridaye Vadaya.
Samvijamane Ridaye Vadaya.
Gyanena Vairagya Balena Dhira.
Gyanena vairagya palena dhira.
Raje matatin grisaroja pitam.
Raje matatin grisaroja pitam. Okay, we'll do the word meanings. Yat, that which. Shraddhaya, by eagerness. Shrutavatya, simply by hearing. Cha, also. Bhaktya, in devotion. Samrijamane, being cleansed. Hridaye, in the heart. Avadaya, meditation. Jnanena, by knowledge. Vairagya, detachment. Balena, by the strength of. Dhira, the pacified. Vrajema, must go to. Tat, that. Te, your. Angry, feet. Saroja Pitam, lotus sanctuary. Translation: simply by hearing about your lotus feet with eagerness and devotion, and by meditating upon them within the heart, one at once becomes enlightened with knowledge, and on the strength of detachment one becomes pacified. We must therefore take shelter of the sanctuary of your lotus feet. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.E.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The miracles of meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord with eagerness and devotion are so great that no other process can compare to it. The minds of materialistic persons are so disturbed that it is almost impossible for them to search after the supreme truth by personal regulative endeavors, but even such materialistic men with a little eagerness for hearing about the transcendental name, fame, qualities, etc., can surpass all other methods of attaining knowledge and detachment. The conditioned soul is attached to the bodily conception of the self, and therefore he is in ignorance. Culture of self-knowledge can bring about detachment from material affection, and without such detachment there is no meaning to knowledge. The most stubborn attachment for material enjoyment is sex life. One who is attached to sex life is to be understood as devoid of knowledge. Knowledge must be followed by detachment. That is the way of self-realization. These two essentials for self-realization, knowledge and detachment, become manifest very quickly if one performs devotional service to the lotus feet of the Lord. The word Dhira is very significant in this connection. A person who is not disturbed even in the presence of cause of disturbance is called Dhira. Sri Yamunacharya says, since my heart has been overwhelmed by the devotional service of Lord Krishna, I cannot even think of sex life. And if thoughts of sex come upon me, I at once feel disgust. A devotee of the Lord becomes an elevated Dhira by the simple process of meditating in eagerness on the lotus feet of the Lord. Devotional service entails being initiated by a bona fide spiritual master and following his instruction in regard to hearing about the Lord. Such a bona fide spiritual master is accepted by regularly hearing from him about the Lord. The improvement in knowledge and detachment can be perceived by devotees as an actual experience. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu strongly recommended this process of hearing from a bona fide devotee, and by following this process one can achieve the highest result, conquering all other methods. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cham Shri Rupam Sagajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatayubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 5, Text 42. Yat Shraddhaya Shrutavatya Chabhaktya Samrijamane Ridaye Vataya Gyanena Vairagya Balena Dhira Vrajemata Tengri Saroja Pitam. Simply by hearing about your lotus feet with eagerness and devotion, and by meditating upon them within the heart, one at once becomes enlightened with knowledge, and on the strength of detachment, one becomes pacified. We must therefore take shelter of the sanctuary of your lotus feet. So Srila Prabhupada's first sentence in the purport, he talks about miracles. He writes, the miracles of meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord with eagerness and devotion are so great that no other process can compare to it. And in his last sentence in this full-page purport, he writes, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu strongly recommended this process of hearing from a bona fide devotee, and by following this process, one can achieve the highest result, conquering all other methods. So he talks about miracles. So I experienced a miracle yesterday. I'll share it. Meaning it was, statistically speaking, the chances would be 0. So it must be a miracle. Of course, miracle basically means we don't understand the mechanism. I heard a quote attributed to Albert Einstein. There are 2 ways to see the world. One, either nothing's a miracle or everything's a miracle. So, just like, something like the images on the computer of someone from, let's say someone from the medieval age a few hundred years ago, we could watch movies with armies fighting. Oh, this is a miracle. But well, actually, there's some circuitry and, there's some engineering behind it. So it means like we don't understand. So yesterday I knew I was scheduled to lead class this morning. So around late afternoon, I read this verse. And Prabhupada talks about miracles, and themes are knowledge, detachment, attachment to sex desire, and the process of initiation. Right? So I read the verse. Now, yesterday morning, I got up like 3 a.m. and I read Prabhupada's books before morning program. And typically I'll read some of Prabhupada's books. Actually, I'm reading Krishna book now. And about some battles between Lord Shiva and Lord Krishna. And then after reading Prabhupada's books, then I'm reading transcribed lectures from Srila Prabhupada. That's, for the most part, the past 36 years or so. In addition to reading Prabhupada's books on a somewhat regular basis, I'm reading his letters, conversations, lectures. And so the Srimad Bhagavatam transcribed lectures, it's an 11-volume set. each volume about 700 pages. I'm coming to the closure of volume 10, and I didn't do my prescribed reading on that. I did some of it, but I had like another 5 minutes that I wanted to do before the end of the day. And it means like about two pages. So I read this verse, and after I read this verse, okay, I was, because I knew I was going to give class this morning, the first thing that came to me is Prabhupada gives an example of a king. It's an example involving a king, emperor, and his daughter, and his minister, and a very elderly person who's about to leave his body and die. And it illustrates some principles about sex life. So I thought about that one. I was trying to remember the details. So then after that, maybe around 6 p.m., I thought, okay, let me read my 2 pages to complete what I determined was my reading commitment for the transcribed lectures. So I read, and I'm reading Prabhupada's lectures on 7th canto, 6th chapter. It's Prahlad Maharaj speaking to his playmates in kindergarten there in school, and Prabhupada gives lots of lectures on 7th canto, and it's in Vrindavan. So I just go right on the page I am, and right there in the middle paragraph of that page, Prabhupada talks about Emperor Akbar and his minister Birbal, and I was so like this deep in my faith, there is Super Soul, there is God, there is Krishna. It was okay. Then after I completed my reading, I thought, well, maybe Prabhupada talks about this hundreds of times. But I went to the database, and there's only 2 places in all of Prabhupada's teachings. He never once mentions that in his books, never once mentions that in a letter. He never mentioned it in any of the 37 volumes of conversations. There's only 2 places where he mentions it. And okay, and one of them is where I was reading, and the other one's another lecture in Vrindavan. It's the only 2 places. So I did some statistics. So the chance that I would happen to land on that right after I thought of it would be about 1 in 30,000. I did some statistics. It means like less than about 1/10 of a percent, something like that. So that's a miracle. Like there's no way that could have happened. It was like practically 0. All right. So the example is, wow. Yes. So this is true story. What I just said there. So the example, and indeed to give like a wonder and discovery icon. So Prabhupada, he talks about there was an Emperor Akbar, like Muslim emperor in charge of India, like that, maybe Mughal period, I don't know, 600 years ago, something like that. And he had a minister, and both the emperor and minister were very sharp fellows, very intelligent. And so Akbar asked the minister, so how long does this lusty sex desire, how long does that go on? And his minister's name is Birbal, and so Birbal said it goes on forever. It goes on until the end of life, like even when someone's really old. And Akbar said, no, I don't accept that. So then Birbal said, okay. So then Birbal, it was maybe a few days, few weeks, maybe a few months later, that there was someone in the kingdom, like an elderly man, and he was like dying, deathbed, about to leave. So Birbal, quick, and he got Emperor Akbar, said, you must come with me quick, drop everything, come with me. So Akbar said, well, okay, this minister wouldn't waste my time, so okay. So he went with him, but Birbal said, but bring your daughter. He had a young daughter, bring your daughter, bring my daughter. Okay, so he brings his daughter. So they go in, and then Birbal so Birbal says, okay, so you just notice this dying man. You notice where his focus is. So the dying man, like a member of the kingdom, just an inhabitant, a citizen, but then he so he says, oh, the emperor is visiting me, like that. But so Akbar could see that the dying man's, his attention was on the daughter. Even though he has no capacity to enjoy. But so then, but he could see his attention was on the daughter, like that. So then Akbar said, Birbal, you're right. You know, you're right. So Birbal was very clever to find an experiential way to illustrate that point. So, all right, so, all right, and in interesting juxtaposition of themes here: initiation, sex desire, knowledge, detachment. Rishabhadev describes to his sons, Pumsa Striyami Tuni Bhavametam. So it means the attraction between male and female bodies. It's the core of existence. Biblical language, the shackles of the soul. Tayoramitharidaya, Grantim Ahu means that. So then, and then acting on that attraction that tightens the knot of attachment to material existence. Atogrihak Sitap Viter, Janasimaho Yamaha Mameti. And then that, the indulgence in sexual desire, it reinforces the illusion that I am this body, Janasya Moho Yamahamameti, that I am this body, and that I can be happy and satisfied by satisfying the senses of the body. And it all starts with the Pumsa Striya, like that. In it, that tightens that knot in the heart. So there's, in the 5th chapter Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada has a few just very pithy, potent aphorisms. He writes, spiritual realization and sex pleasure go ill together. So this, spiritual realization and sex pleasure go ill together. So we can think, I don't want that to be true. And it's not about, it's like, okay, it's like, there's like the law of gravitation. And I'm going to say, like, if I drop the cushion because of the law of gravitation, it will fall. So it's like, are you saying it's, yeah, okay, no, it's the same thing. Are you saying it's bad? Are you saying it's good? Are you saying it's immoral? That's not the focus. Good, bad, immoral. Prabhupada's just giving truth, maybe a truth we don't. Spiritual realization and sex pleasure go ill together. In the same chapter, he writes, the more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more he is entrapped by material miseries. Okay. And then that core, gluey material pleasure is sex desire, like that. And so, Prahlad Maharaj, going back to Prahlad Maharaj, because like that. So Prahlad Maharaj describes when he's in his prayers to Lord Nrsingadev. Prahlad Maharaj describes, he says, Yanmaya tunayati kriyamedi sukham hitucham. That little brief pleasure, maitunayati, that conjugal pleasure, kandu yanena kare or eva dukkha dukkam. He said it's like scratching an itch, Trampyanti neha kripana baudukka bhajo. Kanduti nam manasi jam vishahita Dhira. And so he said, for a little bit of temporary, hollow satisfaction, and just like, okay, it's like satisfying. It's like satisfying to scratch the itch. Satisfying to scratch the itch, but then it just gets more inflamed. So Prahlad Maharaj talks about those who are Dhira. And so that's a theme here in this verse also, and in the purport. Dhira, the pacified, the sober. Dhiras tatra namuyati. That a Dhira person will resist to scratch the itch and inflame it. Scratch the itch and inflame it. And so it's described. Matras parshas tukanteya shitoshna shukadukada agamapaino nijas tamas vibarta. The appearance and disappearance of happiness and distress, which is based on sparsha. Sparsha means the touch sensation. I mean, it applies to all the senses, the sight, but Krishna's talking about the touch sensation. Matras parshas tukanteya shitoshna shukadukada agamapaino nijas tamas vibarta. The appearance and disappearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of the winter and summer seasons. They're based on sense perception. Okay, so the senses are attracted, the senses are not attracted. And so Krishna is encouraging us tolerate without being disturbed. Be a Dhira. Dihinosmi yata dehe komaram yoganamjara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuyati. Right, this change of body. A sober person, a self-realized person is not disturbed. That's what Prabhupada's getting at here. So Krishna goes on in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Yamhi navyatyante tu pusham pusharshava samaduka sukham dhira somitatvaya kapate. Krishna says because like the senses will have material happiness and material distress. One who's not disturbed by material happiness and distress, and is steady in service in both. So that's liberation. That's liberation, right? Because so then just the example of Birbal and and Emperor Akbar, right? So Birbal's the senses will be disturbed as long as we have material senses, and to not let that get in the way of enthusiastically living purpose in the highest sense, and that's the soul using its human form. In that verse, Prahlad Maharaj uses the word kripana, just like Krishna, just like Arjuna uses the word kripana, karpanya dosha patasvabhava. Arjuna says, now I am confused about my duty and I've lost my composure due to weakness. In this condition, I ask you, please instruct me. Tell me what to do. I'm a conditioned soul. Now I'm your disciple. Please instruct me. So probably kripana means a miser. Means like we have something very valuable. A miser, someone very valuable. I got all this treasure, but I just want to, each day I'll collect it and I'll count how much money I have, but I'm not going to use it for any good purpose. That's a miser mentality. I'll just hoard it and, greed. Okay, so we do have something. We have this amazing treasure called the human form of life. We have an amazing treasure called the human form of life. And then if we use it only for those petty external gratifications that are available in other species, then we're being kripana. Tripyanti neha kripana bahu dukkha bhajo. So Prahlad Maharaj said, better to be Dhira and resist the itch. Resist the itch. Okay. So the human form of life. Maharaj Rishabhadev talks to his sons, and another text there. Nayam deho deha bhajam riloke. Kastan kaman oherte vidbujame. That he says that, he's talking to his sons and he's saying, don't settle to live this life for those pleasures that are available to the stool eaters, the hogs, the dogs. Don't settle for that. This human life, tapo divyam puchakayena sattvam, this human life, we have the opportunity to voluntarily means I choose to voluntarily do austerity, which means to give up some immediate pleasure for deep, enduring, eternal, ever-expanding, ever-deepening bliss. Ever-expanding bliss. So that's spiritual intelligence. That's spiritual intelligence. And yeah, actually, just so somebody joined recently online. So themes in the verse and purport: knowledge, detachment, initiation, and sex life, attachment to sex life. I was speaking to a client recently who was talking about sexual liberation. So that's a good idea. We need to look at what does it mean? What does it mean?
So sex with whoever you want, whenever you want, with as many people as you want.
That's the standard definition. So then we can look at, there's a definition of freedom. Okay, that real freedom is the capacity to commit to my highest good. So in the name of freedom of the senses, freedom, sexual liberation, to what extent in the name of all that am I being a slave to my senses, my tongue, my belly, my genitals, my mind? To what extent am I being a slave to my senses and calling it freedom? And in that way, really alienating myself from myself more and more. So the Bhagavatam is encouraging us, to use this human form of life to go for that pleasure, that bliss, that fulfillment, that's not available anywhere in any material species in any planetary system, and that will not entangle us further in the cycle of birth, death, old age, disease, eating, sleeping, mating, defending, like that. Okay. Of course, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Dharma virido bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshava. He says, sex life that's actually used for in spiritual service to produce children within marriage and to raise the children to be God conscious. And Krishna says, I am fully present. God is fully present in that use of desire, of lust. Kamosmi bharatar shava. So again, the Janashimo Yamha Mameti, right? So this, and Prabhupada writes, then that the most stubborn attachment for material enjoyment is sex life. One who is attached to sex life is to be understood as devoid of knowledge. Because knowledge means the ABCs, the foundation of knowledge is I'm not this body. I'm not this body. So you can say, I know that. I'm not this body. But then Prabhupada's saying, but there's a test, there's an experiential test. Krishna says, Rajavidya Rajaguriyam Pavichami Damutamam Prajakshivagamam Damyam Shushakam Kartamitham. He says this isn't just abstract theorizing. We can directly experience. We directly experience this process. So if I could say, I understand. No, I understand. Cigarettes are not good for you. They're not healthy. And they're not good for the environment. They're bad for my teeth. They're bad for my lungs. I understand. But if I'm smoking 2 packs of cigarettes per day, you don't really have knowledge. You don't really have knowledge because you don't have the detachment. You don't have the detachment. So That's the test. Like if I given up the cigarette habit, then I have realized knowledge. So those go together, knowledge and detachment. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Projita Janayat Yashu Vairagyam Gyanam Chayada Hetukam. So that's the principle here. By engaging in devotional service, bhakti yoga, Krishna consciousness, naturally knowledge, understanding, realization of who I am as not the dead material body, but as the blissful spirit soul, that gets revealed. And then naturally, Vishaya Vinivartate Niraharasidenam Rasavajramasopyasa Paramjishtam Nivartate. Then very naturally, without separate endeavor, we get the higher taste of the soul turning towards itself in self-realization, and the soul engaging in a devotional turning of consciousness to the Supreme with devotion, to Krishna with devotion, and the joy of that, then naturally, the lower tastes are transcended and given up. Prabhupada, and again, the first sentence again, we talked about a miracle I experienced yesterday after reading this purport by Srila Prabhupada, the miracles of meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord with eagerness. The miracles of meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord with eagerness and devotion are so great that no other process can compare to it. Very powerful language, very powerful. I remember this was a client, this was a while ago. This was maybe 15 years ago. Actually, that client has passed away since then, but that client was having a lot of struggles with his sex desire and acting on it in different ways. And actually, nothing about my coaching, but in those months when he was coaching, his process became that whenever he feels his desires beginning to overwhelm him and he's beginning to act on them, that he's going to meditate. He's a householder with deities of Sri Sri Radha Krishna. He's going to meditate on the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, and was very effective. It was transformational for him, and he transformed his relationship with his sex desire through exactly what Prabhupada's saying here, meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord. It's described also in the Bhagavatam, Tatchada Dhanamuneo, Jnana Vairagya, again, Jnana Vairagya, knowledge and detachment, Yuktaya, Pashyant Yatmani Chatmanam, Bhakti Shruta Grihitaya, that the humble student or sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, realizes Sri Krishna, Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the person of Godhead, by engaging in devotional service. Then, okay. So I find it interesting that here in this purport, Prabhupada's talking about knowledge, attachment, sex, desire, and then he talks about initiation. Devotional service entails being initiated by a bona fide spiritual master and following his instruction in regard to hearing about the Lord. Such a bona fide spiritual master is accepted by regularly hearing from him about the Lord. Yeah, so initiation. There's like the formal event of initiation, which is completely transcendently potent when done in alignment with our disciplic succession through Srila Prabhupada. And then at the formal event of initiation, the initiate publicly gives some vows, right? Like for the rest of this life to chant at least 16 rounds per day of Hare Krishna, Ma Mantra Japa, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And to follow 4 regulative principles, also for the rest of this life. And usually we hear those 4 regulative principles described in, I'll call it, negative terms, like that. But we can see, like, we can conceive of it positively. It's something that came to me, like, in positive terms. Not that positive is better, just we can, like, okay, no intoxication. I'm committed to no intoxication. That's an interesting term, because so basically I'm committing to a clean life. If we look at the word intoxication, it means like toxins. So it's like well, I'm free to toxify my body. Yeah, so that's like envy of the self. It's like, why would I want to put toxins in my body? Okay, no, my goal is actual spiritualization. So I'm committing to a clean life, not going to toxify my body. Okay, no gambling. Okay, no gambling means I'm committing to honesty and truthfulness, Brahminical qualities, honesty and truthfulness. Like gambling, oh, rather than work hard, I'll just bet here, bet on the horse races, and try to. Okay, so just I'm committed to honesty, truthfulness, integrity, no illicit sex life. I'm committed to self-control. I'm committed to self-control. That I'm not a slave to my tongue, belly, genitals, or wherever my eyes take me, wherever I'll click here, click there, wherever my ears. No, I'm the driver of the trade of this body. It's like very empowering. No meat eating, no meat. Okay, I'm committed. I'm committed to compassion and mercy and kindness to all living entities. Okay, so now, so initiation essentially it's not an event, it's a process, and the event can be a part of the process. The event actually is not an essential part of the process. At the same time, it is a transcendental part of the process that Srila Prabhupada gave us. And yeah, and the essence of the process of initiation is this hearing, chanting. It's receiving Divya Gyan. We sing that every morning in the Sri Guru Vandana song, Divya Gyan Ride Prokashita. We're appreciating Srila Prabhupada. You fill our heart with transcendental knowledge. Like Divya, you can see the English word divine in Divya. Divya, even my birth name, David, same root, okay, like that. Divya Gyan, also we can see the English, knowledge, gnosis from the Greek. The English word traces it back to the Greek, it goes back to the Sanskrit, Gyan, knowledge. So transcendental knowledge. You fill our heart with transformational, transcendental knowledge, meaning not just like data or information, but transcendental knowledge where every word from Srila Prabhupada, every word from Srimad Bhagavatam, it reveals truth and it's identical to the truth it reveals, meaning whatever we understand cognitively or not, it's transformational. And that's why, like even just, sometimes people say they just read one word, they read one sentence from these books, their life's transformed. We might be more or less conscious of that. So how powerful this transcendental knowledge is. So that's the essence of the process of initiation. And then at some point, actually the ceremony isn't like where one is like, oh, now you're connected with Prabhupada. The ceremony is actually a formal acknowledgement. Formal doesn't mean dry and empty. Like it is ceremonial. We could even say it's ritualistic, but that has such a negative tone. Just like, okay, when I come into the temple room, whether it's in my home or Mother Malini's home or when I come to the temple room, I offer obeisances to Srila Prabhupada, and I recite Srila Prabhupada's pranam mantras, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Right, so I've been doing that for more than 40 years. And you can say, well, that's like a ritual you follow. When you come down, you bow. When you come in, you bow down. And so as my life goes on, each day, for sure each year, I'm getting more and more realization, this is not a dry ritual. That, when I'm following that regulation, bow down before Srila Prabhupada, recite his pranam mantras. When I'm doing it with focus, it's transformational. It's a powerful transformation. And I'm looking forward to it several times per day. Dayam Strivams Tasya Yashas Tri Sandhyam, at least at 3 junctures per day. So So there might be rituals, but this is not dry, empty ritual. This is meaning, substantial, transformational. And so, in one sense, so you might say the ceremony of the formal initiation, it's an official acknowledgement that you've already connected with Srila Prabhupada through accepting, through accepting, through accepting to serve his mission. So this gets to the essence of initiation. I'm reminded, Srila Prabhupada tells the story of his own life, right? He tells a story. This is another one, a little bit like the beer ball and like that, because we think, oh, Prabhupada probably tells that a lot, beer ball and Akbar and the daughter. But actually, it's only twice he tells it, but we hear it a lot because devotees repeat it. So also, Prabhupada talks about, he only mentioned it once that I'm aware of in a lecture in Hyderabad. He says he first met his spiritual teacher, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, in 1922. And then Prabhupada got the formal initiation in 1933, 11 years later, from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. But Prabhupada says very clearly that when he first met Bhaktisiddhanta, Prabhupada says that was the real initiation. That was the real initiation. Why? Because that's when Prabhupada accepted Bhaktisiddhanta's mission. He accepted, your mission's my life and soul. So we are alive and immersed in the process of initiation to the extent that we're committed with our life and soul to serve Prabhupada's mission. And to the extent someone is, not just in lip service, not just, to show how committed I am or something spiritually, but to the extent from the depths of our heart that we're committed to serve his mission, then we're initiated. And everything else is actually superfluous. And then naturally, if I'm committed to serve Prabhupada's mission with my intelligence, my energy, my words, my resources, realizing they're not mine, they're Srila Prabhupada's, let me use them in his mission. Then naturally I'm going to be eager to follow his instructions, just like Arjuna there in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, when he says, okay, I've been a miser till now, not making effective use of this human form of life. Please instruct me, I'm ready to follow you. So then naturally, just as Prabhupada says here, that devotional service entails being initiated by a bona fide spiritual master and following his instruction in regard to hearing about the Lord. Such a bona fide spiritual master is accepted by regularly hearing from him about the Lord. The improvement in knowledge and detachment can be perceived by devotees as an actual experience. So then Prabhupada says, okay, here's my instruction, here's my guidelines for hearing. Like if to the extent you're serious, at least 16 rounds per day, follow these regular principles, morning program. So naturally we follow, and we commit ourselves to enthusiastically serve his mission. That's the actual process of initiation. Even like materially, it's well known that when we're focused on a task, then we can tolerate other disturbances when we're focused. I just had a coaching session with someone recently, and he shared, and I was inspired. I shared some self-disclosure. He shared about he was distracted this way and that way, and then he lots of things going on in life, and he just like focused in on one area. And it was like a trivial, petty area, but just because it was something with technology that was frustrating. He just focused in for 2 hours, just put everything else. He said it was fulfilling because he was focused. And I shared something similar because I had a writing project. I was trying to focus on, but I wasn't successful. And then I just thought, okay, that's it. Phones off, email off, shut it off. Clearing 4 hours, focusing. And it was frustrating. Research that, but that's it. But then after 4 hours, I felt so fulfilled because I focused in. I focused in, and actually, I was surprised. I actually made more progress, wrote more pages than I was expecting to. Prabhupada will sometimes give the example, Joseph Stalin, who wasn't a good guy, but that Joseph Stalin, Prabhupada describes, it's reported, like he was undergoing stomach surgery, and he chose not to have anesthesia, okay? But he could do it because he was like so focused on his mission of killing tens of millions of people. But yeah, okay, again, it wasn't but it just shows, like, that power. So when we're like, so as far as like, well, how to how to give up material sex desire because it's so agitating. One thing is to make that like, well, it's actually not a sort to realize it's not a source of happiness. Of course, it can't be used spiritually. We talked about that earlier. But it's so, like, to the extent that we're like absorbed in spreading Prabhupada's mission, absorbed in following Prabhupada. So it seems to be, we have that, and then naturally agitations, disturbances, dirasta, tranamuyati, petty interpersonal tensions, this and that. Just like let's cooperate to serve Prabhupada's mission, and that's like the trans-phenomenal, transcendental, unifying power and source. And that's like the miracle of this power of devotional service, as Prabhupada says in the first purport. The first sentence of the purport, the miracles of meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord with eagerness and devotion are so great that no other process can compare to it. So Srila Prabhupada, he situated the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. We meditate on following his guidance and serving his mission, using our intelligence for that. Then the miracles in pulling the weeds from the core of our heart naturally transpire. So I'll read the verse again, then I'll be glad to hear any comments, realizations, inspirations, questions. The verse, Canto 3, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chapter 5, Text 42. Yachvadhaya shrutavatya chabhaktya samrijamane ridaye vadaya Gyanena vairagya balena dhira vrajamataten grisaro japitam. Simply by hearing about your lotus feet with eagerness and devotion, and by meditating upon them within the heart, one at once becomes enlightened with knowledge, and on the strength of detachment one becomes pacified. We must therefore take shelter of the sanctuary of your lotus feet. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Any comments or questions? Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Would anyone like to share any realizations, ask any questions at this time?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Nandini.
Thank you for your class. I just have a short comment, and because we've been speaking about the lotus feet of Krishna, and it's something I'm meditating on a lot. What does it mean? And in recent classes, like Mother Marini spoke about it yesterday, and
yeah,
like I spoke about it in some class, and just like, yeah, what does it mean? Like it's the so first and second canto, they describe the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. And then I remember Mother Marini shared about like literally meditating, looking at the lotus feet of the deity and meditating on it. And so this first sentence just struck me.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, that's the explanation. It's a miracle.
I'd like to understand more. What is it that struck you about that first sentence?
Well, the miracle.
Okay, the miracle. Yeah.
I'm endeavoring to understand and describe and put it into words so my mind can get it, and what are the lotus feet and how to meditate on them, and what's the mechanics.
Yeah.
I do this and then this happens and this happens, and here Srila Prabhupada just summarizes it with a miracle, and I feel completely satisfied.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing how you're simply satisfied by Prabhupada's simple statement of realization. Yeah, thanks for sharing. I mean, the miracle is like how transformational it is. I mean, one explanation I hear is like the 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 pure devotees of Krishna are situated at his lotus feet. The idea is transcendence, right? Like so, like okay, so there's Krishna's lotus feet. Very simple. Just like there's Krishna's flute, and then it's the principle of transcendence, right? Just like our feet are on the ground and we're like that, so that so that everything about Krishna and the devotee starts with approaching the lotus feet. That's humility. Everything about Krishna, his name, his form, his qualities, his pastimes, his devotees, his paraphernalia, his associates, his dham, everything about Krishna is completely transcendental to anything mundane. So any connection with him is miraculous in its cleansing effect. It's miraculous in any association with it's miraculous in its cleansing effect. And the demigods in their humility naturally they're approaching Krishna from the feet's considered the lowest part of the body, and so with Krishna everything is transcendental, including his pure devotees.
Yeah. Well, and as I'm speaking, as I'm listening to you, there's other things from your class that, yeah, that I really liked. And one thing was when you spoke about initiation and making a commitment, and to make a commitment. Okay, in this life, I'm going to stand up for compassion for all living entities, and I don't know, I heard it in a new way. I thought, wow, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
To live a life. This is what I'm committed to. Compassion for all living entities. Yeah, I just like that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's a true way to conceive of it. It's a true way to conceive of it. And then, so a lot of people could say that. And so, like, Prabhupada makes it very concrete. So it's like, 'cause a lot of people, I'm committed to compassion. It's just like, well, how come you're cooking dead flesh? I'm committed to compassion. It could sound nice. Then Prabhupada said, okay, and here's some of the nuts and bolts what it looks like, the regulative principles. So I'm glad that you find it cool, inspiring, let's call it the positive language of the regulative principles. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, and practically for my life, like I'm going to be taking kids to the forest, like starting in a few weeks. And usually what they do, they just take like some sausage and they to put on the fire. And I said when we go to the forest, we're not going to do that. And yeah, someone asked me why not, and I said for me it's a contradiction that I should teach the kids to be compassionate and caring and attentive to each other, and also to the forest and the animals and the trees, and then we put dead animals on the fire. It's just a contradiction. And yeah, I was like an anxiety in my head is what if the parents ask me, what will I say? And I just feel like encouraged to just say the same thing to the parents. Just yeah, for me it's a contradiction. I don't want to encourage that. So yeah.
Thanks for sharing. I hear your clarity. I appreciate, because that takes boldness, takes courage. I appreciate you're getting transcendental intelligence. How in your profession to give these truly virtuous Brahminical principles. I'm inspired, and you're getting realization how to communicate it in a way that's authentic and true and gentle and respectful.
And detached.
Detached, yeah. Knowledge and detachment. Thank you, Anandini. Um, this, well, just, okay, this knowledge and detachment. I mean, Srila Prabhupada, just like a real pillar of what he gave us is the example of the six Goswamis. Because all of them, this coming to me, they all had a lot to be detached from. Like it's one thing if someone doesn't have a lot to renounce, but they're all very affluent, wealthy, like, yes, super famous, super rich, and then they just Prabhupada gives that because they had real knowledge. Okay, I'm going to read Kelly's comment. Kelly said, Anandini, beautiful response to why not to cook meat on the trip to appreciate nature. Thank you, Kelly. Let's describe about the Goswamis. Taktva Turnam Shesha Mandala Patim Shrenim Sada Tuchava Bhutva Dina Ganesha Kau Kunaya Kopina Kanta Shritao Gopi Bhava Rasamritam Dilahali Lahari Kalola Magnao Mur Vande Upasana Tana Raguyugao Shri Jiva Gopalaka. That they were very aristocratic. They were one of them. Sanatana Goswami was like the prime minister of the land. They were all very wealthy, and they had all facility for all the enjoyment of all the senses, and they just gave it up. They were wearing loincloths, and completely immersed in the ocean of the gopis' love for Krishna, and constantly bathing in the waves of that ocean. So that's, we don't want to imitate that. Of course, that's called sahaja, to like take material, mundane sex desire and try to intermingle it with that the original conjugal relationship between Radha and Krishna. And that's essentially material sex desire, which makes the material world go round. It's basically I want to imitate Radha Krishna. It's basically what it's about. And so through the regulative devotional practice, so then with such immersion as exemplified by the six Goswamis, then desire for fame, profit, material sense gratification, it just goes away in the bliss of that. And the six Goswamis, that immersion in the transcendental love of the gopis' love for Krishna, it's all founded on rigorous. They were known for counting. They were known for rigorous sadhana with a quantitative vow, saying Gya Purvaka Namagana Natibi Kala Vasani Krita Nidraha Raviharakadi Vijitao Chachanta Dina Chaya Radha Krishna Gunasmriter Madhurimanandena Samoita Bandevu Pasanatana Raguyugao Sri Jiva Gopalakao. I offer my respectful obeisances to Srila Sanatana Goswami, Srila Rupa Goswami, Sri Gopal Bhatt Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, and Sri Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, that they were absorbed in practicing chanting and offering obeisances and all the activities of devotional service according to our fixed vow, Sankhya, with the vow and numbers, and through such their sadhana. Because like one side is they were immersed in the love of the gopis for Krishna, and their sadhana was like lines in stone. That's specifically described, like with Raghunath Das Goswami, like a line in stone. You're not going to erase that line with an eraser. So their sadhana was like lines in stone, and through that, then naturally they conquered over sleeping, eating, and it's described. They would have like a few drops of buttermilk every other day, and maybe they would rest for 2 hours per day. And Prabhupada would say, and as far as resting for 2 hours per day, sometimes they forgot to do that. Just like I forget so many things. But I never forget eating and sleeping, because those activities are very dear. They're very dear. So today is Ekadashi. So today is a special day where I get to do some fasting. The idea of Ekadashi is not essentially about don't eat. The idea is, yeah, let's minimize bodily activities to increase time for studying Bhagavatam and engaging in kirtan. Jai. Hare Krishna. Anything else? Srimad Bhagavatam ki.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.